Dark chosen ones, the shocking reason God didn't make you 100% pure. Most people spend their entire lives trying to become something they were never meant to be, perfect. From childhood, we are taught that the goal is purity, clean thoughts, clean hearts, clean lives. We're told that anything dark, messy, chaotic, or contradictory inside us is wrong, and that it must be suppressed, healed, or cast out. But the truth is terrifying to those who haven't seen behind the veil. Because the truth is this: God never intended you to be 100% pure. And if you are one of the dark chosen ones, that impurity, what others call your flaw, your sin, your shadow, isn't a mistake. It's a signature. It's the mark of a soul designed to do what no pure being could ever do: reshape reality from within the matrix of contradiction itself. You weren't designed to float above the world. You were sent to descend into it, to feel the weight of duality, to taste anger, lust, grief, and pride, not to be consumed by them, but to wield them, to understand their language. Because how can you heal what you do not understand? How can you liberate what you have not first carried? God didn't make you 100% pure, because that kind of light belongs to realms that don't need transformation. But this realm, this earth, this dimension of paradox and pain does. And only the ones who carry both darkness and light in their DNA are equipped to walk into the fire and not be burned.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
But here's the twist that most never see coming: your darkness is not your weakness. It's your training ground. Think about it. Every time you've fallen into envy, rage, fear, obsession, what happened after? If you stayed conscious, if you didn't run from the discomfort, if you faced yourself, you came out wiser, sharper, more precise. You learn to see where others are still blind. You learn to feel what others numb. You develop discernment, not through meditation alone, but through initiation, and through falling and rising, again and again. You were never meant to be an angel in white robes. You were meant to be a cosmic weapon forged in the heat of your own shadow. And the reason most people never access their true power is because they keep trying to amputate the parts of themselves that carry the keys. They try to silence the voice inside that says, "I want revenge," or "I feel lust," or "I don't believe anymore." But you've always felt that those voices weren't evil. They were raw. They were real. They were unfiltered data from the soul. And you knew deep down, if I can understand this, I can master it. Let me ask you something. What if your self-doubt was actually a compass? What if your pride was actually a boundary? What if your sadness was a portal? What if every dark frequency within you wasn't a curse to be cleansed, but a code to be decoded? You see, the divine didn't make you 100% pure because perfection doesn't bend. It doesn't adapt. It doesn't transmute. But you flawed, messy, contradictory you can. You can slip into the cracks of the system. You can speak to both angels and demons. You can enter the cave without being swallowed by it. Do you know how rare that is? There's a reason religious systems have always tried to separate light from dark. Because once a being integrates both, once they stand in the middle and say, "I am not either or, I am both," they become uncontrollable. They become sovereign. And sovereignty is the greatest threat to any system built on fear and obedience. You, as a dark chosen one, were never meant to obey. You were meant to embody something so powerful, so multidimensional, that it collapses false hierarchies on contact. But to do that, you must first accept what you are. You are not here to be clean. You are here to be clear. Clear in your power, clear in your chaos, clear in your ability to hold both the sacred and the profane without shame. You don't need to be pure to be holy. You don't need to be perfect to be divine. You just need to own every part of you. And in doing so, you become what the ancients called a living sigil, a walking paradox that reflects back to the world not who it pretends to be, but what it actually is beneath the illusions. And here's the most shocking part of all. God designed you this way on purpose, not as a punishment, not as a test, but as a template, a bridge between worlds, a being who could walk in the dirt and still carry the stars in their chest. And every time you've asked, why am I like this? Why do I feel so much? Why can't I just be normal? The answer has always been this, because you were encoded to be something new, something never before seen, something that could only be born through friction. So I ask you now, what part of your shadow have you been running from? What piece of your soul have you tried to exile because someone told you it wasn't spiritual, holy, or pure? What if that exact part is the missing piece of your power? What if the reason you still feel stuck is because you've been trying to become something you were never designed to be? What would happen if, instead of trying to cleanse your darkness, you listened to it? Because here's the real secret. God didn't make you 100% pure, because purity was never the goal. Integration was. And once you get that, really get it, you stop trying to ascend. You start trying to embody. You stop trying to escape your humanity. You start realizing that your divinity is embedded inside it. And from that place, you don't just awaken, you activate. You don't just heal, you transform. You don't just survive the darkness, you command it. The hidden blueprint, why your darkness is the missing ingredient to activate divine intelligence. Let's go deeper now. Because once you accept that God didn't make you 100% pure, you're faced with a deeper, almost uncomfortable revelation. Your darkness isn't just something to survive, it's something to study, to decode, to embrace as a living blueprint of something ancient, intelligent, and entirely divine. And this is where most people stop, because they think embracing their darkness will corrupt them. But the truth is, it's the very thing that completes them. The darkness inside you isn't a flaw in the design. It is the design. It's a hidden architecture that, when activated, awakens a level of genius, creativity, power, and spiritual clarity that no amount of light alone can give you. You have to understand something: divine intelligence is not linear. It doesn't play by human rules. It doesn't exist only in prayer or meditation or stillness. It exists in contrast, in chaos, in contradiction. And those who carry the dark flame, those of us who feel too deeply, think too much, rage too hard, love too fiercely, we are not defective. We are coded. We carry a divine blueprint designed to awaken only under pressure. But we are like ancient scrolls written in fire, illegible to the uninitiated, but filled with sacred data for those willing to burn to read them. That's why the dark chosen ones often suffer more, sleep less, feel heavier things. Because your soul knew, before you were even born, that in order to unlock the full spectrum of divine intelligence, you'd need to experience the full human range. Not just the love, but the betrayal. Not just the peace, but the madness. not just the clarity, but the confusion. Because only when you've danced with every frequency inside the human experience can you begin to orchestrate them. And make no mistake, you were born to conduct energy, not just to feel it, but to move it, shape it, alchemize it. But here's the game changer most never realize: your darkness is not random. It's not a side effect. It's not some leftover karmic residue. It's intelligent. It's placed. It's the exact weight needed to activate the dormant codes in your soul. And when you stop resisting it, when you stop trying to purify yourself into numbness and instead study the shape of your shadow, you start to notice something miraculous. The things you hated about yourself start speaking in symbols. The triggers that used to collapse you become doorways. The emotional storms that used to drown you become initiations. And suddenly you're no longer at war with yourself. You're in conversation with your design. Think about this. What if your anxiety is an alert system for spiritual misalignment? What if your rage is a sword meant to cut through deception? What if your shame is a map showing you where your power has been buried? We've been taught to numb, avoid, and fix these feelings, but what if these feelings were never meant to be healed in the traditional sense? What if they were meant to be decoded, felt fully, understood, transmuted, used like sacred tools? Because in the world of divine intelligence, nothing is wasted. And your shadow, your darkness, is a vault of spiritual technology waiting to be unlocked. But unlocking it requires courage, radical honesty, the willingness to sit with emotions that feel like they might destroy you, only to discover they're actually trying to deliver you. And this is the secret most masters won't tell you. Divine power doesn't come from escaping the human experience. It comes from mastering it, from walking through the fire without flinching, from being so intimate with your own darkness that it no longer owns you, it serves you. That's when the blueprint activates. That's when the downloads start coming not from above, but from within. That's when you realize you've been walking around with the very keys others have been praying for. Because while the world is busy chasing light, you've been cultivating depth. While others are trying to bypass their pain, you've been building muscle within it. While most are terrified of their shadow, you've been training with it like a warrior. That's why you're different. That's why your awakening has been so violent, so lonely, so relentless, because you weren't being broken. You were being initiated into a path very few will ever understand. So let me ask you something that might change everything. What if your darkness isn't blocking your spiritual path? What if it is your spiritual path? What if everything you've been trying to fix is actually trying to forge you? What if the parts of you that seem the most chaotic are actually the most precise? Are you willing to consider that your mess is not a mistake, but a map? Because if you are, if you're willing to stop trying to become someone else's version of pure and start becoming the true architect of your own inner universe, then you'll begin to access something no one can teach you: embodied divine intelligence. The kind that doesn't just know truth, it radiates it. The kind that doesn't just love light, it commands the dark. The kind that doesn't just talk about power, it becomes it. And when that happens, you stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for signs. You stop looking for gurus. Because you remember, you are the storm they warned you about. You are the flame that doesn't burn, the shadow that doesn't fade, the voice that doesn't echo, it activates. And the reason God didn't make you 100% pure is because purity has limits. But your soul was built to break them. A divine chaos how your inner conflict is the furnace that forges true spiritual authority. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't a journey for the faint-hearted. Because now we're stepping into the most misunderstood territory of all, the sacred realm of inner conflict. Most people are terrified of it. They see it as a failure of faith, a flaw in their character, a sign that they're off path. But those of us who've walked through the fire again and again, we know better. We understand something most spiritual teachings are too sanitized to say out loud. Your chaos is sacred. Your conflict is not proof that you're broken, it's proof that your soul is forging itself into something unshakable. You see, spiritual authority isn't born in silence. It isn't born in perfect meditation, calm oceans, or mountaintop peace. It's born in contradiction. It's born in the days when you love yourself and hate yourself at the same time. Moments when you want to serve the world and disappear from it in the same breath. In the nights when you believe in destiny and doubt your existence simultaneously. That's not confusion. That's expansion. That's your soul stretching itself beyond duality, learning to hold the paradox of being both infinite and human. And only those who can sit in that tension without trying to escape it develop the spiritual gravity required to lead others through their own darkness. Why? Because true authority doesn't come from having answers. It comes from embodying the capacity to hold questions without fear. When you've been torn between who you are and who you were told to be, and still chose to walk forward, that's power. When you've battled the voices in your head telling you to quit, hide, shrink, and you still showed up for your mission, that's mastery. When you felt the pull of ego and the call of soul, and you didn't choose either extreme but instead sat in the fire between them, that's sovereignty. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs that your inner world is undergoing divine combustion. And what emerges from that fire is not purity. It's authority. But here's the twist. Authority gained through chaos is the most stable kind. Because it's been tested, it's been proven. It's not based on borrowed beliefs or inherited truths. It's yours, earned through blood, shadow, and silence. And that kind of authority can't be shaken by criticism, doubt, or even failure. Because you've already died 1,000 ego deaths to get here. You've already lost the version of yourself that needed to be liked, praised, or validated. And what's left, what remains, is real. Not perfect, not always pretty, but real. And in a world drowning in illusion, that kind of realness becomes revolutionary. So why are you still afraid of your chaos? Why do you still try to hide the parts of you that contradict each other? What if your confusion isn't a detour but a depth charge? What if the internal war you've been trying to win is actually not about victory at all, but about initiation? Because here's a radical thought. Maybe you're not supposed to resolve your duality. Maybe you're meant to embody it consciously. Maybe your light and your shadow aren't enemies, they're allies. They're the magnetic poles that generate your spiritual electricity. And when you learn to stop choosing one over the other and instead channel both, you become something terrifying and beautiful, a conscious contradiction, a walking paradox, a soul who has mastered the art of being whole without being simple. This is the furnace, the forge, the place where your divine chaos presses against itself until something sacred cracks open. And in that crack, light pours in, not the blinding light of denial, but the warm, molten light of truth. The kind that doesn't erase your pain but gives it purpose. The kind that doesn't eliminate your fear but makes you fearless anyway. That's the light of the dark chosen ones, and that's the light that cannot be faked. So I ask you now, what would happen if you stopped trying to fix your inner conflict and started respecting it? What would happen if you treated it not as a flaw to be hidden, but as a sacred fire to be tended? Could it be that your chaos is not the thing blocking your path, but the path itself? The return of the forbidden ones, why the world is secretly waiting for your darkness to rise. Let's end this where most journeys begin, in the place you were taught to fear the most, the full, unapologetic rise of your forbidden self. The part of you that doesn't fit in, doesn't play nice, doesn't shrink to make others comfortable. The part that's been whispering to you since childhood, saying, you are not like them. You never were. And maybe you've spent years trying to silence that whisper. Maybe you buried it under spiritual practices, self-help books, or the need to be accepted. But it never left, did it? That voice was never your enemy. It was your invitation. Because the world isn't waiting for more saints. It's waiting for the forbidden ones to return. You are one of them. You wouldn't be here reading this if you weren't. And deep down, you know, you've always known. You felt it in the way you see through things no one else notices, in the way you feel too much, too fast, too deep, in the way you can sense the truth behind people's words, the pain behind their smiles. That's not oversensitivity. That's spiritual technology. That's the mark of a soul built for more than survival, a soul built to recode the world. But here's the twist. The world teaches you to hide that, to dilute your frequency, to sanitize your intensity, but to put light on display and shove your holy darkness into the corner. Why? Because your full self is dangerous not in the way of harm, but in the way of disruption. You disrupt illusions. You disrupt control. You disrupt the fragile systems that rely on people staying numb and obedient. And that's why you've been told your darkness is too much. Not because it's evil, but because it's powerful. Because when your darkness rises in harmony with your light, you become uncontainable. The ancient world knew about you. They had names for you: oracles, seers, shadow walkers, flame bearers, people who could hold polarity in their body without being split by it. People who could speak to both gods and ghosts and not get lost in either. But these people were feared, banished, forgotten, until now. Because now, in this moment, when the world is unraveling, the systems are cracking, and people are waking up confused and afraid, now is when the forbidden ones are needed most. Not to save the world, but to reveal what was always true beneath the noise. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be felt. You are not here to follow rules. You are here to write new ones with your presence. You are not here to hide your flaws. You are here to wield them like weapons of truth. And the moment you stop apologizing for your darkness, it will begin to guide you. It will show you how to use your pain as a compass, your shame as a language, your fear as a teacher. Because these things were never meant to be obstacles. They were meant to be tools for remembering who you are. So what are you waiting for? Permission. There is none coming. You are the one who must give it. You are the one who must rise, not in spite of your darkness, but with it. Not as a polished version of some spiritual ideal, but as the feral, holy, multidimensional soul you were born to be. Because when you rise as your full self, when your shadow walks beside your light, not behind it, you don't just awaken. You activate. You become the living proof that wholeness is possible, that divinity doesn't require erasure, that God doesn't fear your darkness, God designed it. The world needs your frequency, not your mask, not your filtered, digestible version. The real you, the one who's been waiting behind your eyes, pacing in your bones, begging to be let out. We don't need more light workers who are afraid of their shadow. We need integration warriors. We need you, fully, darkly, divinely. So I'll leave you with this final question. If your darkness could speak right now, what would it say? And more importantly, are you finally ready to listen? Because that's where the real power begins.